Thank you, Rabbi Krieger and Rebbetzin Krieger and Mrs. Krieger for inviting me here and hosting me for the week or so that I'll be in Cincinnati. I'm here because I was chosen as a fellow at the American Jewish Archives program. I believe I'm the first Chasid to be part of the fellows since it started in 1976, I believe. And I'm very happy about that. I've discussed it with others, rabbis, and this was the decision that we made to come to Cincinnati. The rule they have is, if you want to be part of the program, you have to stay here. They want you to research in their facility. And I was there today for a few hours, and it's a wonderful, wonderful facility, quiet, and the archivists are very, very workable. And so far, it's been wonderful meeting you people here, and I hope to get to know each and every one of you individually, okay? By your first name, and to develop a friendship, you know. Although I'm only here for a week, the week can turn into a lifetime if we become friends, and most importantly, we open up. Now, opening up is very hard, and we'll leave that for another time. Maybe come back to what we call a farbrengen, which means a Hasidic gathering where you toast a little l'chaim and it gets a little easier to open up, you know? But it's very important to open up. So tonight, the topic that I chose is reincarnation, afterlife, dibbuks, past life regression. It's the subject of this book that originally was called Soul Journeys. It's published in the early 2000s. It sold out, and I since reprinted it as Neshama Stories. Neshama is the Hebrew word. It means soul. Soul stories. I combined stories with teachings of Jewish mysticism, i.e. Kabbalah, and personal life experiences, and they're in this book. It's available if you care to purchase it. Otherwise, it could be the library should have one. The first question that I've been asked thousands of times is, do Jews believe in reincarnation? So I'm going to ask you the question. How many of you would say, raise your hands, how many of you would say Jews do believe in reincarnation? Raise your hands. How many would say Jews do not believe in reincarnation?
I say yes.
And the answer is, the million-dollar question, Jews do believe in reincarnation. Although in some schools of thought there were questions, but by and large today, I would say most Jewish people around the world that are knowledgeable in this field do believe in reincarnation. What is reincarnation? Reincarnation is that the soul that we have, now I'm accepting an axiom, which is that we all have a soul, okay? I'm not discussing now or proving to you that we have a soul. That's a whole other discussion. Can I prove to you that we have a soul? Parenthetically, I'll tell you what that reminds me of. I was once at the Chabad house at Berkeley, California. I'm talking about now many years ago. Much younger man. And you know what they would call Berkeley? Berserkly. The radicals of the 60s and 70s, one of the hot spots was Berkeley, California. I was a Chabad rabbi in a place called Marin County, California, which is across the Golden Gate Bridge to the north. And I wrote a book about that, and I can tell you many interesting things about that. Some actually I included here in the 4th section of the book. But anyway, I'm walking home with a college student, a girl, with some other students and another rabbi. And I say the word God. And she looks at me and says, Rabbi, don't use that word. I say, why not? I don't believe in God. I said, okay. There is a force, I say to her. There is a spirit. There is an energy. Oh, she says, that I believe. The word God is not kosher, but the word force, energy, spirit, that's all acceptable. My dear friends, you all know, it's one and the same. A little bit to the right, a little to the left. You know what we do today? We tweak, right? We're in the world of tweaking. You tweak God, right? So, accepting the fact that we all have a soul. And by the way, when I talk about a soul, I mean not only a human soul, but a Jewish soul, which is the Hebrew word here, neshama. It's in English. Neshama is the Hebrew word for a Jewish soul. Okay? So accepting that for this conversation, the soul is sent by God Almighty into our body. To do what? To serve Him. To make the world a better place. Okay. What if you messed it up a little bit? We're not perfect, right? What if you embarrass someone? What if you didn't go to synagogue on the high holy days? Whatever it is, issues between God and God that we are taught in the Holy Torah, or between God and man, between man and man, they're both on the same level. If anyone tells you that not going to synagogue on the high holy days is worse than embarrassing someone or cheating on your taxes, send them to me. They're the same. Both are important. Both are important. In Yiddish, we use the words for humanity, mensch. Be a mensch, right? Be a human being. Come on, be a decent human being. Then there is be a godly mensch for us, for Jewish people. Be a godly Jewish people for Gentiles and the entire world. Be a decent human being, a spiritual human being. Okay, so this soul of ours that's invested in a body has challenges. Challenges that are sometimes, it's not a fastball, it's a curveball. And sometimes it's a slider, and sometimes it's a forkball, right? You don't know where it's going. And then when you have an event like October 7th, you're totally blown away. Where are you, God? Or what happened 70 plus years ago, the Holocaust? Or 1,500 years ago? No, about 500-600 years ago, sorry. The Spanish Inquisition, the Crusaders. I mean, should I list all the bombshells that we have dealt with as a Jewish people? Not necessary. Everyone knows it, right? And then you ask a little question, where are you, God? If there's a God, what are you doing? Right? Good question. The soul, when it encounters these type of challenges, it's moved. It's moved sometimes to the right, sometimes to the left, sometimes up. Sometimes we cry, sometimes we laugh, sometimes we dance. You never know. But one thing's for sure, the soul is moved. The soul is not sterile, stoic. The soul is in constant movement. And what we do as people and as Jewish people, we're grappling with the issues. Consciously and superconsciously. Just tonight I finished an interview with someone, a professor, and I said, it sounds to me, he wrote a critique of Chabad, and I said, it sounds to me that I find the trajectory of your articles beginning in the 1980s, 90s, and now that you have some axe to grind with Chabad. He says, you know, I never thought of that. Maybe I should go for some therapy. I didn't want to tell him. You should. You know, this rabbi's telling you, wise professor, that maybe you got something that's going on inside. But the fact is that the soul is in quandary. The soul is asking, where am I? What am I doing? Now, what happens after a person passes away? Their body, their soul leaves their body, and I can tell you this firsthand, because as a rabbi, when I came out to Marin County, I knew I would have to bury people. It's part of the Jewish tradition. And I knew that there's a holy way of burying the Jewish people. It's not just another piece of flesh that you just disintegrate and get rid of because it costs money to bury. It's an issue. You gotta pay the bill. You know, but that doesn't justify cremation. And there are laws of the rituals. So I went for training. And guess what I confronted? The first time in my life, I was 23 years old. Probably, I don't know how old some of you that age, right? I was your age. A young man out of Brooklyn, out of the Yeshiva. I never saw a corpse, a dead body in my life. Right in front of my eyes was a dead body, a Jewish body. The soul left the body. And I was there to purify the body in a ritualistic way so that when the body is then put in shrouds and buried, it returns to God who gave him or her a Jewish body. You come from earth and you return from earth. Okay? What happens with the soul at that time? Judaism, Torah, Kabbalah believes that the soul goes to a place in which it receives cleansing from its stuff, and then it gets a second chance. Guess what God does? It sends back the soul into another body. And the purpose of doing that is so that this soul, which the first time goofed up in A, B, and C, gets another chance to rectify and improve and correct. And that is the classical view of Jewish reincarnation. It's not about a sacred cow. It's not about a Buddha. It's about the soul inside each and every one of us. It's interesting. Does anyone know the Hebrew word for the concept of reincarnation? Thank you. Gilgul, spelled in English Gilgul. What's the numerical equivalent of the word Gilgul? 72. What does which other Hebrew word equals 72? Chesed. Chesed means benevolence and kindness. The Gilgul, the reincarnation process, is God's way of doing us a big favor, a kindness. He says, I love you, and I want you, and I need you, and I'm going to give you another chance. Now, right away, when you hear this, it should open up your mind and your heart. Look how wonderful God Almighty is that He gives me a second chance. This is not like Christianity, which is you're doomed. You're a sinner. This is Torah. This is Judaism. Judaism, it's all about kindness. By the way, not just for Jews, for all of mankind. You get a second chance. So this is the first premise in tonight's discussion, is the concept of reincarnation. We do believe in reincarnation. I've told you what basic reincarnation is, and that it's a real kindness, it's a real chesed. I'm only going to touch upon a few points, and if we have another get-together next week, we'll do more, okay? Because there's so much to say, and time is of the essence, and I really want to hear from you, you know? For me, this is... I've done this before, and I enjoy doing it, and but I like to get feedback, and I really want to hear, so I could use that to improve and share. So, the next idea of Gilgul, reincarnation, is this soul that's been reincarnated into us. How many times does it come here? Is it a one-time make-up call? The answer is no. As many times as is necessary to complete the soul that needs correction and repairment in different areas, and you don't do it the second and third time, you come down a fourth time. Now, let me say this as well. The soul is not happy about coming into this world again. Guess what? The soul does what God wants. But at the end of the day, how many times am I going to come back to the playing field to play soccer or football? Come on. Do I need to go through this again? So yes, you're telling me it's an opportunity. But you don't utilize every opportunity, right? You choose and pick. But God says, I gave you a clean soul. When God gave us the soul, it's clean, it's pure. So God says, I ask you, please return to me a clean soul. Someone gives you a gift. Here, it's a book. They loan you a book here to read it. You expect it to come back decent, not half torn and all that, right? You'd be upset. God wants the soul to come back nice, pristine, clean. It takes sometimes several times. And now you're going to ask me the $1 million question. What's your first name?
Bennett.
Bennett. How many times does it come back? You know what my answer is? I don't know. Guess what? No one knows. And it's not that no one knows because we're not Kabbalists. It's an unknown. There's certain secrets. There's certain things that God does in the universe that's called the esoteric realm, the secret realm. Only God knows. And there's a reason for that. What's the reason? If we were to know everything, they would used to say, when I was growing up, if you know everything, you become old very quickly. It's good to have a question. Which brings another point to the table, parenthetically. It's all right to say, I don't know. And when you say, I don't know, it doesn't mean that everything else gets thrown away. I don't have all the answers. I'm not looking for all the answers. I try to understand or find out what's going on in my world, in my life. I share with others, but I don't have all the answers. If you find me a person that has all the answers, we definitely have to lock them up. Sorry. You can be the most brilliant rabbi, professor, psychologist. All the answers. Who can say he has all the answers? In fact, God says I don't have all the answers. How do you like that? How does God say that? By making a world. Making a world that there's questions. And there isn't always an answer. Does that take away from his perfection? Absolutely not. That's another discussion. I don't want to go into that tonight. How can God be perfect yet have unanswered issues? Or are they really unanswered? We'll leave that for another time. I don't want to get too philosophical. I don't want anyone to fly away. Stay grounded. So, let's go on to another point of reading. I'm just giving you some of the points, and we'll discuss. The soul comes back several times. Can a male soul go into a female, and a female soul go into a male? What do you think? What's your name?
Anne.
Anne, what do you think?
I'm guessing yes.
And your answer is correct. You would think a male and female, there's a male body, there's a female's body. They're just two different bodies. Okay? I'm not being political, and please don't. I'm from Brooklyn, so I got a hard hat. Okay? You would think that if a soul of a male wasn't a male, it should go into a male, and that's it. A soul of a female into a female. Kabbalah says, Jewish mysticism says no. There could be, for whatever godly reasons, where the soul of a man goes into a woman and a woman into a man. The results of that are yet to be explored in a Kabbalistic way, and therefore I will not engage in that right now, although those in the different movements today who talk about this are trying to put the two together. This needs more Torah exploration, and it's not a topic that has been really tackled, and so I'm not going to tell you, thoughts and ideas. I'm trying to stick to giving you answers and information from the texts, from what I studied in the texts. Okay, I'm not making up this stuff. Everything I'm telling you is from holy books, Kabbalistic books, and teachers that I had throughout my years. So the answer is yes, it could be. Okay. Another question: can a soul enter an animal? The answer is yes. But when a soul enters, let me explain this. An animal has its soul independent of a human soul. It's an animal soul. Just like yes.
You mentioned the neshama is a Jewish soul. A non-Jewish soul would then be called what?
Nefesh.
Nefesh. And then an animal soul, would that be a nefesh, or would that be something else different?
It's called the nefesh of an animal.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, the table, which is inanimate, has also a soul. It's called nefesh hadomamis, or nefesh hadome, which means the soul of the inanimate. Another way of explaining that, the soul of the silent. Right? An animal talks its language. A tree grows, the inanimate stays put, no growth, no conversation, no intelligence. But it's here. It has a soul. If it doesn't have, again, what does soul mean? Energy, force, spirit, life force. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. It has to have a godly connection. So, when a human soul needs to have a certain cleansing, it goes into an animal soul. The Kabbalah says, the Jewish mysticism says, that at that time, that is considered, I use the word cleansing, punishment, a certain severe form of cleansing because it is not the norm of a human soul to be in an animal. An animal has its soul, like you. What's your first name?
Ray.
Gray?
Ray.
Ray, I'm sorry. Ray, like you said, the nefesh of an animal, the soul of an animal. But here, it's not the soul of an animal. It's the human soul that gets put into an animal, and that's very uncomfortable. A human walks on 2, an animal on 4. Yes.
So
what is your first name?
Monty.
Bonti?
Monty with an M.
Monty. Go ahead.
So could a Jewish soul go into an animal?
I'm telling you that a Jewish soul, a soul of a human being, the norm is only to be in a human being. An animal has an animal soul. For certain issues that needs heavy cleansing, a Jewish soul can be reincarnated into an animal soul.
But at that point, it would just become an animal soul. It wouldn't.
No, never said that. Got to be very careful.
Yeah.
It's a good question, a good point, and the answer is no.
Okay.
The Jewish soul at that time in the animal is in pain. Why is it in pain? Because it wants to walk on 2 and it can't. I'm just giving you one example. So the experience of a human soul, in this case a Jewish soul, being in an animal is very painful. But for sometimes you have to go through that cleansing wash machine process to come out clean. That's actually called in the writings Tsar HaGilgulim. He mentioned your first name? Michael. Michael mentioned the word Gilgul is the Hebrew word for reincarnation. Gilgulim, with the 2 last letters, means the plural. Tsar means the pain, the agony. It's considered the agony of reincarnation. You wanted to say something?
I have 3 questions.
Oh, please start with one. Give me a break. Go ahead.
Could a human soul go into an inanimate object?
Yes. But again, not as the norm. If a human soul, if a human soul goes into inanimate, it's also considered a painful experience. But the answer is yes. What's your second question?
My second question is, when a human soul goes into an animal soul, are they both in the same animal at the same time?
Yes.
Third question, why is it a punishment? And why is it also a cleansing? Sorry.
Well, I'm using the word in this context, punishment and cleansing, as synonyms. Okay? You know, people, when they hear the word punishment, they're going a mile away. So that's why I'm using the word cleansing. To be honest. I've got to be honest. Anyway, why is it a cleansing? Put yourself, imagine you go into a sackcloth. Would you feel comfortable? Let's talk about what happened October 7th. I'm not talking about it, but people are dragged away like animals, like pieces of dirt. That's very painful. The norm is you walk from here to there. You walk there, you walk here. All of a sudden, you lost control. That's the answer to your question. When you're out of control, when you lose control, that's the most painful thing. That's why it's called the agony of reincarnation. Yes?
How does a soul leave an inanimate object?
Perfect question. Right in the book, chapter 6. Listen to the title.
Okay.
Never too late, a soul suffering for 2,000 years finds peace at last. Miriam Bas Bilga, a woman who lived 2,000 years ago, bringing a lost soul home after 2,000 years. And that's about a lady named Miriam, the daughter of Bilga. It's a long story. I'm going to make it very short. Basically, she did something that was considered by Torah law outrageous, not acceptable. Okay? And because of that, she was the daughter of what we call Kohanim, the priest, the Jewish priest family. And they were supposed to, how did they survive? So they got bread, the shulchan, in the Holy Temple, there was bread, loaves of bread. Because of what she did, her entire family was punished and they got stale bread. Why, when, why they blamed for her act, the Talmud discusses it. I'm not going to go into it. That's the facts. 1975, Brooklyn, New York, Crown Heights, Rabbi Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I believe I was there as a very young man, on his mother's anniversary of passing, called a yard site, 10th yard site. Second talk, he starts talking about this story that I just told you, which is in the Talmud, in Tractate Sukkah. And he says, he interprets the event that the Talmud says she was sinful, that she was actually very, very special. Because when the Romans destroyed the Holy Temple 2,000 years ago, and we're unfortunately coming up to it in the next 3-4 weeks, there was desolation on the Temple Mount, what's called today the Temple Mount, in Jerusalem. She went over there, and although she did something outrageous against God, she took her sandal, she banged it on the altar, the Mizbeach, and she said, "Lucas! Lucas!" That's not George Lucas. Lucas means fox! Fox! God! She turned to God. How do you allow this desolation to your people, allowing the foxes to wander all over the Holy Temple Mount? Where are you, God? She asked that question. The same question we're asking. She asked it 2,000 years ago. And the Rebbe said, you know, the Rebbe said, look how special this woman is. That although in her personal life she did something that was against God, at the very same time here she did a 183-degree change, and she cries out on behalf of the Jewish people. 2 weeks later, the Rebbe spoke again, and he said, I made the post office very wealthy. I received letters from all over the world complaining, and everyone paid for stamp postage. That's what he meant. Complaining, how can I, Rabbi Schneerson, go like this? If the meaning is this, how do you go like this, right? The meaning in the Talmud is a negative statement about this lady Miriam, and I come along 2 weeks earlier and say she's so special. And the Rebbe said, he said there's a story. What's the story? The story is with his ancestor, the first Chabad Rebbe of Shneur Zalman, the author of the Tanya. He said that he was once approached by someone that was possessed by what we call a dibuk, which is a dibuk means a soul that possesses you. Maybe we'll get to it tonight. If not, if you're interested enough, come back next week. We'll talk about possessed souls, dibuks, or what some would call today people who are not mentally stable. But that's, you have to discuss it. So, and it's in the book as well. So anyway, the Rebbe saw this person who said, I'm possessed, I'm possessed. So the Rebbe said, I know who your soul is. Your soul is from this rabbi who got up 1,000 years earlier and he stabbed and murdered a prophet, a Jewish prophet, because the prophet was about to utter a negative prophecy against the Jewish people who were not acting accordingly, and he said to them, you continue this, you're doomed, you're going to be finished. Stop your ways. The law is that when a prophet prophesies, it has to become true. Again, why? Not now. So 2 gentlemen got up and they stabbed him. They stabbed the individual who was called Zechariah Hanavi, Zechariah the prophet. The Rebbe said, your soul, to the fellow who came to him saying that he's possessed, your soul is that soul. And as soon as the rabbi said, you know why he stabbed him? Because he wanted to protect the Jewish people, and he didn't want the prophet to utter a bad prophecy, so he got up and he murdered him. So he wasn't interested in murder, he was interested in protecting the Jews. And as soon as that happened, the dibuk, the possessed soul, left and the person walked out normal. The Rebbe said this in regard to the questions that were asked of him. How could he have he made this interpretation in the Talmud that Miriam was good instead of bad? What did we understand from this? That's all he said. That Rabbi Schneerson, the Rebbe, on the night of his mother's 10th anniversary, 1975, you know what he did for Miriam? He took her out of 2,000 years of spiritual slavery of being possessed. Now, can I prove that to you? I can't. No one can. But if you put the pieces together and you know who Rabbi Schneerson was, and you know what the Kabbalah says, and this has source in Kabbalah, it all fits in beautifully. So your question was, can you take out a soul from an inanimate, right?
Yes.
So I gave you a story to support the idea of taking out a soul from someone who I don't know, no one knows where Miriam ended up, spiritually. If she died 2,000 years ago, and here it's 1975, where was she all this time? No, we don't know. But it could be she was an animal, could be she was in a rock. And could be that she was in the piece of bread, in the food that was being eaten at that gathering in 1975 in Brooklyn. And when the Rebbe said this, and we make blessings on the food, because it's kosher food, the soul jumped out and had its peace. So the answer to your question is yes. And more so, one of the ideas of Hasidic masters, when they would travel, especially in Europe, they would all of a sudden go to the water, to a river, a pond, you imagine the high river, and they would say, wait a second, to the people. They used to take 10 men with them, 10 people with them, in the caravan, in the carriage, and they were on a long route. They would stop, and they would go down to take some water, make a blessing, bring some water. And you know why they did that? They had water in their, they weren't thirsty, that they had their own water. They did it because they were elevating a soul from the water. Now, these things are, these things, you don't have a script for this, tell me. Like you're going to tell me. Is it Ann? Ann, like Ann's going to ask Rabbi Dalfin, tell me, where's my soul today? Where's my soul yesterday? Where's my soul going? Now, if we do past life regression, we might be able to have some ideas. That's a whole other study, and I'm not going to discuss it tonight. Past life regression therapy, from a Jewish perspective, not even Eon Stevenson's approach to past life regression, which is an interesting one and a valid one, but there is a Jewish approach to it. But the fact is, my purpose of sharing all of this is to have you understand and hopefully relate that these ideas are part of the Jewish experience. Now, maybe Michael is a rationalist. You know, maybe he's a Maimonides, the Rambam. And, you know, rationalists have a hard time relating to Kabbalistic ideas. And I get it. And it's fine. But all I can tell you is that in my life, I've seen it clearly. I have a story here with my own daughter, who just married 2 months ago. Thank you. I'll tell you the story briefly. It's in the book, but just briefly. Her name is Hinda Freda. She was born several hours before my grandmother passed away. My grandmother was a survivor. I'm a second-generation Holocaust survivor. I'm talking from the skin. Okay, I don't have numbers. My grandfather had a number on his arm. My father survived the Romanian. My father's from Romania. That Holocaust. Okay, so this isn't just, you know, cheap talk. This is real in my family. We are a Holocaust family, second generation. My parents are first generation. Grandparents, parents. Anyway, so my daughter is born a few hours before my grandmother passed away. She was very sick. She could have died a week before, 2 weeks before, a week later. She dies the same day in Judaism. The day begins with night. So she dies on the same day. Her birthday is the same day as my grandmother. All I knew, my wife told me, though, that she was born 1 o'clock or so in the morning, 1, 2 o'clock, I forget. I do that. In the morning, before I pray, usually, I go to what's called a mikvah. It's a body of water to immerse myself, if I have that, or a swimming pool, or if not, a shower. Besides cleanliness, to clean yourself, to spiritually prepare your day with water, which represents, cleanliness, spiritual cleanliness. Okay. I go in, I come back out, and someone comes running in at 6:30 in the morning, by the way. Someone says, Rabbi Dalfin, your father called the public phone, in those days we still have public phones, at the yeshiva. Right? I said, my father called at 6:30 in the morning. I went, came home, and I saw in those days we still had answering machines, right? And what did I see? It's blinking. I turn it up. And what is it? My father says, your grandmother just passed away. And he already know, I told him that. He says, I'm sure you'll name your daughter after your grandmother. Which I did. Knowing her character, there's so many similarities. And guess what? She carries the same name. She has the same Hebrew name as my grandmother. So, don't tell me it's not real. It's real. Here is the girl. Here is the newly married woman. This is my daughter. I know how she was raised. I know her emotions, her intellect, her style. So reminiscent of my grandmother, the Holocaust survivor. The Jewish name. Whether you have currently a Jewish name or you don't, and I'm sure the rabbi, Rabbi Krieger, and his wife, will be more than glad to help you with that. The Jewish name is a depository of strength. You call yourself a little more often with your Jewish name, you'll see things in your life will go upward and upward and upward. The Jewish name is very powerful. Yeah, sometimes professionally we need our other name. But that Jewish name connects to the soul, to the neshama. And when you connect to the neshama, you connect to the soul, many things in your life will change because the soul is thirsty. The soul is looking for spiritual food and nourishment. And the way in is the Jewish name. So if all you walk away with tonight is not believing in reincarnation, because I haven't convinced you yet, but to maybe use more your Jewish name, or get yourself a Jewish name, I'll be very happy. And you'll be more happy. And I've seen it. I look, I study with people who are Washington, D.C. attorneys and other people. I have a group of adult students in Israel who study with me 4 times a week. Telling you, start calling them by their Jewish names. I ask, do you mind if I call you instead of Michael and say Michael, if that's your Hebrew name? Michael. It's proper to ask. And the person says, I don't mind, and the next time I will see Michael, God willing, my memory will be there, and I will say Michael. Why? I don't know his English name, Michael. I want to elicit the soul. I really do. I want to elicit the soul. Because it's good for him, good for me, good for all of us, and good for the world. My dear friends, this is the end to the first part of our discussion. And now it's your turn about anything you would like to ask, even not on this topic. And if I can answer it, try. Go ahead. What is your name?
Morgan.
Morgan.
So is there like a point where a soul just is done reincarnating? Or is it just like a continuous process because the soul always has something wrong with it?
The answer is there is an end. When the soul corrects the issues of the past, it doesn't come back again. Problem is, Morgan, how do we know that? But the answer is there is. God knows it.
So God will create new souls once like done, like it's not just like recycled souls. Eventually new souls will get created.
Okay. Excellent question. Excellent question. Someone just asked me that this week. Mostly today, and today I don't mean just today, there are no new souls. Most souls, or almost all souls, have been here before. Okay? Once in a lifetime, you will have a new soul. But to identify that, only a great sage, a scholar, and not just scholar, but mystic, can tell you that, and even that's very unknown. In fact, it says that the Jewish Messiah, known as the Mashiach, the Jewish Messiah will come when the entire treasure house of souls will be finished. Go ahead, Michael.
So, okay. So, this is a two-parter question, I think. Depending on the regenerative cycle of souls, the Torah says that 70 souls went down to Egypt. And then my question, so how many Jewish souls are there, and how many stood at Sinai?
So, the basic answer to that is over 600,000 souls stood at Sinai.
Okay.
All of those souls included all the future souls. And why is that? Something that we didn't talk about before, but it's relevant to your question. A soul splinters off into subcategories and groups. So your soul initially could be in person A, B, and C, depending on what they could do to help that part of your soul that needs help and correction in a certain field, that's where it's going to go. So in other words, I struggled with your question. This was one of the first things when I learned this. I struggled with this for a long time, and this is the conclusion that came with in discussion with some others. That a soul is a composite of various elements, of various. Let's use the word sparks. Right? Now, a sparkles here, a sparkles there. Depending on what that spark needs, that's the body it's going to go into.
And then what's the ultimate anatomy of a soul? Because if there's different parts, then...
So the answer to that, another good question, the basic anatomy of a soul is your part and the part that you need to correct.
I don't know what that means.
That means there is an independence. There is an independence to you and what you need to do on earth. And then there is something else that you need to do to help someone else's soul that's in you.
Perhaps to clarify, you mentioned the soul, like the soul as it's when it's in the world, is supposed to correct historical issues that it has had. Is that from previous incarnations that it needs to go back?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your...
Yeah.
Go ahead, please repeat.
You had mentioned that the soul needs to correct historical errors.
Right.
Is that historical from historical reincarnations, or is that the current incarnation to correct things that happened in the past during this current incarnation?
This incarnation needs to correct things of the past in addition to doing what we're supposed to do on our own now. Michael, still not clear?
Nope. Like there were 600,000 souls in Sinai.
Right? And they are... Go ahead.
We have more than, thank God, 600,000 Jews
That's
in the
right.
world
That's
today.
right. And each one of the 13 million Jews in the world is included in the 600,000 souls because each of the souls has compartments, sparks. So the way those 600,000 souls express themselves is in, right now, 13 million people.
And then there's no change. It's just like a rearrangement of
So that's
soul components.
right.
Right?
Right and wrong.
Okay.
Yes, but
Okay.
not correct in the sense of that one of the soul components is unique and to us who we are today.
What is that?
That
Define unique for me.
Unique means that this part of the soul was never here before and is only given to you and no one else to work on and use and refine.
So it's like an unrevealed aspect of something that already exists.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes. Yes. Let me take a question from you. Go ahead.
So, could a Jewish soul go into a non-Jewish human body, or does the fact that the soul is Jewish make the body Jewish?
The answer is it can go into a non-Jewish body, but then it's considered also very painful, and it's a painful situation. But the answer is yes, it could happen. It's I would say an exception to a rule, but it could happen. But I want to say something. It's very important I'm going to say now. This is one of the ideas of converts. A convert to Judaism, a true, real convert that really wants to be Jewish, not because of a certificate, not because of a guy or a girl, right? But really for themselves, they feel Judaism talks to them and they want to convert. They really had initially a Jewish soul, but over the centuries it got very mixed up and lost. and now it's coming back to its core truth. Follow? Very, very important. So when we talk about a convert, a Jewish convert, and that whole idea, it's very important to know this. And this is the criteria, by the way. It's not about a piece of paper. It's not about a love affair. It's not about, philosophy. It is about, do I have a Jewish soul in me? And those converts that feel this way, ultimately, they have that Jewish soul in them. They have to discover and reveal their Jewish soul, not create one. A non-Jew cannot create a Jewish soul. Either you have it or you don't. And both are fine, by the way. God has made humanity, every person on earth, is special in God's eyes. It doesn't say anywhere you have to become Jewish. In fact, you will know, probably, I imagine, you must have heard it, that Jewish law teaches us when a convert comes to you, discourage them. Why do you want to have all this hardship? I know the rabbi and the Rebbe gave you today beautiful pizza and cakes and cherries and salad and it's and it's nice and air conditioned here and it's a beautiful Chabad house, right? But at the end of the day, there are some things in Judaism that are tough. See, he said it, I didn't. Michael said it. Michael. Oh, now you're talking. But really, I'd like to hear from some of the other people. What's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah. What are your thoughts about what we're discussing? If you want to share, no pressure. If you don't want to, I apologize.
I'm trying to think. I've been enjoying everything I'm hearing. So I guess the final decision on if the soul is done with its cycles is just up to God.
That's right.
And is it? I don't know. Is it predestined or?
Yes. But again, yes and no. Meaning, what if you were given a second chance? Your soul was given a second chance, and you come down and you goof it up again. Then you made the choice to goof it up a second time, and you have to come down now a third time.
Well, that was my question. Also, if we do more mitzvot, are we getting our soul closer?
Absolutely. We're doing more of God's commandments, known as the mitzvot. We're plugging away. We're plugging away. And I'm glad you brought up that question, Sarah, because we shouldn't walk away from this conversation, I need to do a mitzvah. I want to do a mitzvah. I want to do a good deed, a commandment of God, because I want my soul not to have to come back again. That's not healthy thinking. That's narrow. We're having, this discussion tonight is extra credit. It's important. It's very important. And when I started the research and I got involved in this teachings, which, by the way, most in Yeshiva, we don't study this, okay? This I started when I was in my 20s, actually probably 30s, and it's because I came across a letter of the Rebbe in which he spoke highly about this teachings, how it can be helpful to people. And when I started to teach it, I saw that so true. After 9/11, you can't imagine, I was giving lectures about these concepts and had room full of people in New Jersey, in New York, here, there, and everywhere. People were all ears, especially at that time. So it's a useful thing to know about, but not to kind of, get caught up on, Am I clear on what I'm saying? What is your name?
Jamal.
What is it? Janelle. Yeah, oh yeah, I met you before, Janelle. What are your thoughts? Anything you'd like to share?
A lot of people's questions are ones I had, so thanks for asking the questions.
Okay.
But one sort of relates to Sarah's question as well, is how, like, is there a way for us to know if our soul is back and
If our soul is what?
has been
Reincarnated?
And if, I don't know, or if like my soul, I know maybe some challenges I've had in my life, and it'd be great to see the movies, people come back and well, I wish I could do that over again, right? Will I have a cognizant knowledge, because it'll be a different body, right? Will the soul know what it needs to fix, or does it just have to metaphysically fix it?
Janelle, excellent question. And there is an answer. My friend, best friend, when he was a young teenager, he wrote to Rabbi Schneerson a letter about guidance in his life. Rabbi Schneerson told him to check his tzitzit. You know what these are? They're called tzitzit. Fringes, these. To check them, they have to be knots and 8 strings, and they have to be done a certain way. Later on, as an older teenager, he had another issue, and he wrote again to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answered him to check his tzitzit again. And then later on, in his 30s, when he had a life-saving accident, he wrote to the Rebbe again, and the Rebbe told him to check his tzitzit. To me, that's a pattern. And that was an opening into his soul. And the Rebbe was telling him, your mitzvah that you need to work on from that perspective, the reincarnation, is the mitzvah of tzitzit. One example. Another example is, friendship, loneliness, depression, alacrity, happiness, livelihood, whatever it is in your life. You look for a pattern. Why is it I couldn't make friends when I was 13 years old? I wasn't popular. I didn't have a lot of girlfriends, a lot of boyfriends. I'm now in college. I'm kind of a loner. And then I'm 35, 40, and again, I'm in the business world, and I don't have many friends. Now, what would many people say? I'm a failure in making friends. So if I'm a failure, why deal with it? Just get over it. That's not my strength. You know what the Kabbalah writes? Jewish mysticism? Wrong. On the contrary, you're getting a wake-up call from God Almighty.
Wasn't it like the Satan tells us why try and keep failing? I don't know. I read it in a book yesterday.
But the first thing is in Judaism, the whole idea of Satan has a different connotation.
Yeah.
Satan. I don't want to go into that right now, but listen let me finish my thought. Let me finish my thought here. And that is that God is sending you a wake-up call. God is saying, you could overcome and make friends. And guess what? Janelle, this is to answer your question. And guess what? When you will make friends, one friend, at least one friend, your soul has reparation. Your soul has been crying out for years, I want to make friends. And I haven't been able to do it because of this blockage and that blockage. So rather than giving up and saying, that's not who I am, go forward and not giving up and overcome and show what you're really made of. Now, I'm not saying, there's type A and type B and type C, and, people are different, but nevertheless, don't let an adversarial situation impact you to the point where you look at yourself as a failure in a certain area. Failing is only a stepping stone to the ultimate growth. And that's, I believe, a response that I studied about a situation like you described. Clear? you finish eating, please. You want to say? No, you already said before, but you want to say something more?
I'm sure I'll think of something.
Okay. I didn't hear from you at all. What's your name?
Josh.
Josh.
Or Yehoshua.
Yehoshua. Rabbi Yoshua, say something. Omer Rabbi Yoshua. Where you from? Cincinnati?
Columbus.
Columbus.
But
Jay Schottenstein country? Okay.
It's my parents' shul for the longest time.
Yeah.
Until I left. No, this is a topic in Judaism I thought about for a very long time.
This is a topic in Judaism that you thought about for a long time. Have you done any reading on it?
Yeah.
What have you read? If I may ask.
Things here and there.
Okay.
Time it. Pretty extensively. I used to learn with the rabbi if I could wake up in time.
Oh, with Rabbi Krieger.
So is rarity.
Right.
But occasionally.
Well, look, I hope you'll continue exploring. I really do. There's a lot to learn about this. If that interests you, a topic that interests. One person's the Talmud, one person's the Chumash, the Bible, the Torah. Another person's the Kabbalah. Jewish law. Immerse yourself into it. The feeling of study is so rich. Just, we live in this transient, plastic world where social media has overtaken our lives. And I'm talking about myself. Okay? I used a pencil and a notebook. I read today, that gadget that's recording me does everything for me. Almost everything. Except going to the archives where I'm forced to come empty the archives for research. Forced to come. Not forced, but I want to come because I wrote about the subject matter. Someone asked me why I'm here. I wrote about an Orthodox group on college campuses in 1960s and 70s called Yavne. And they were catering primarily to Orthodox students or people who were oriented that way to provide their needs with kosher food and Jewish studies. It was called Yavne. The late Professor Benny Kraut wrote a book called The Greening of American Jewish Orthodoxy. I read the book. I used it for one of my books. It's phenomenal. Unfortunately, he died before he finished, so Professor Jonathan Sarna of Boston, helped finish it, and he encouraged me highly to go look at the archives. The archives are right here. HUC, which is under the Reform movement, printed his book. He was modern Orthodox. He was an Orthodox Jew. I don't know, the background, why they did it, how they did it, but that was done. They did it. Because I'm not even sure if they ever printed a book from an Orthodox rabbi before. I'm not an Orthodox rabbi, an Orthodox person. They did that, and the archives are here. So I wanted to see the archives because what I'm doing now, I'm doing a study on I'm comparing the Yavne movement of the 60s and 70s to the Chabad on campus movement of the last 20 years, including today and on. What are the differences? Pro, con, compare, contrast. So, Rabbi Krieger is Chabad on campus, so he's an example. So you're all part of the study. When I'm speaking to you, you're included in the study. Of course, not with your names, unless you want to be your names known. But I'm just saying, what is the difference? How did an Orthodox group in the 60s and 70s react to Jewish students and deal with Jewish students' needs on campus? And how is Rabbi Krieger and all of his 350, I think, Chabad on campus rabbis, how are they dealing with needs not just of the Orthodox, but of Jews?
Speaking of pizzas, anybody else need more pizza?
Thank you. So that's the reason, since the archives are here, I wanted it when I was writing about it in one book of mine. I wrote a little bit about it, you know, I had questions. So I found out from Professor Sarna and the Dana Herman, Professor Herman here, and the archives are here. So when they send out the applications to do research as a fellow, I thought that would be a good idea. And Professor Sarna, Professor Don Seaman, the professor of Jewish sociology, or at Emory University, was a friend of mine. They wrote me very strong support letters, and that's why I'm here. But once I'm here for you. You have me for a week, or maybe a little longer. You know, so if you want to talk anytime during the week, or just to come over, you know, I mean, during the day I'm pretty much at the archives at the Cloyd Library, because there's fascinating things that are hundreds of years old that I want to check out. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. You know, it's not every day that I'm coming from Brooklyn to Cincinnati. But stay in touch. You know, I'm here, and any other issue, whatever. Yes.
I've got a little to do. I only heard bits of the conversation.
I can't hear you.
I only heard bits of the conversation, so excuse me if I'm repeating or I'm not. It's not relevant. I heard you answer the call over here about the souls coming down through this world and each one having a little part.
Yes.
Yes, you do. So I actually heard Y.Y. Jacobson speaking on the Meaningful Living podcast about mental health. And he was saying this generation's had many more mental health challenges than other generations. And you're saying this generation is so much corruption, and when somebody wants the truth, then people make fun of them. But there's so many people here, as we get closer and closer to Mashiach, we want to have a true relationship with God. And he was saying how that this is coming out because, you know, in the days gone by, an okay relationship was okay. But here we want authenticity, we want it. And when you're and so tell me if this is connected. So you're saying that each soul that has that, and each soul that comes down has their special thing for them.
Yes.
So is each generation got a different job? And
Yes.
that soul does that job, and this generation is to bring Mashiach, and we're on a much more spiritual level. Both with all the technologies we have and the space we're in, and so in generations gone by, that soul could not reach that because that each soul has to.
I would say that is correct.
Okay. And then different if I'm allowed to ask about miscarriages and babies who are born stillborn and things like that. Where does that fit in?
Autism. Yeah, it's a difficult topic, and again, it's one that you have to be very careful, because, you know, if someone, God forbid, has miscarriage, stillborn, autistic child, you know, to go and tell them, I know this, I know that, it's not the Jewish way, it's definitely not the Hasidic way. But nevertheless, we do see, and there have been studies done and books written about this, autistic children who speak the truth to the point where sometimes you want to run out of the room. There is something there that is pure. You see, when our soul comes into a body, the mind and the heart, but the mind primarily, is an inhibition. It's a blockage. The pristine, pure soul wants to express itself, and the mind comes and says, nah, maybe, why? Poo-poos it. The autistic child doesn't have those blockages. And this issue also expresses itself at times when a soul leaves the world, what we consider a stillborn, miscarriage, a child that dies, basic Jewish belief is that that soul did not need to live any longer than what it lived for whatever reason. It's a hard pill to swallow. But we know that God is kind. And since God is kind, why would he torment a mother to have a miscarriage or a stillborn? The pain and agony that comes along with it, and the health concerns, if there isn't a higher calling. And rather than being angry at God, upset with God, understand that there's a higher reality happening in our lives. And sometimes the higher reality takes the form of all the issues that we perceive to be negative and no good. So what I'm getting at is, let's put it in different words, don't make God in your image. Make yourself in God's image. If we make God in our image, then God has to give us only healthy children, only wealth, only success, only blessings, right? God is omnipotent. God is all good, even when we don't understand him. I always say, I would never write a book titled If I Were God. That's one book out of my 100 books that I did not write, and I don't plan on writing. I'm serious. I don't want to be God. I want to be me. I want to be the best I can be. But I know that what God sends me is the best for me. Initially, it might be challenging and struggling and difficult, but the more I calm myself and the more I realize the greater purpose, it becomes easier. I'm not going to tell you that, that I'm jumping for joy. I'm not there yet. Far from it. But it becomes easier to see the larger picture. And I can tell you, and I'm sure the rabbi and Rebbe, they can tell you from their lives, over and over and over stories, how we see clearly. The rabbi was telling me how he got here. An amazing, years ago, divine providence that God sent him here and how he came here. The ordinary way of things, he would have never been here. He ends up coming here. Seemingly because of A, B, and C, right? He's here. Look how beautiful everyone's together, right? So in hindsight, it's perfect. It's the best way. The same is true with loss. It's very hard to swallow loss. We should never know of loss. But it's what God wants. I want to share with you a thought the Rebbe writes to a 16 or 17-year-old teenager who lost her mother in Crown Heights. I read the letter, it's in English. And she was the oldest child, a provider for many other younger siblings. And she writes to the Rebbe, a teenage girl, she writes to the Rebbe, it's not fair. I want to live my life. This is my life. I'm a teenager. And now all of a sudden I have to become the mother, like the mother, right? Taking care of my younger siblings. And she goes on to say that she's still in mourning for the loss of her mother. And the Rebbe writes? The Rebbe consoles her, and the Rebbe, But then he says, in the middle of the letter, he says, the Torah prescribed mourning laws are very specific. If you mourn more than those prescribed times, 7 days, 30 days, 12 months, right? You're going against God. If you You don't accept God in death, you don't accept Him in life. Those are my words. It goes back to what I said before. Is God made in your image, or are you made in God's image? Think about it. Think about it. Let it seep in. Let us go to sleep with it tonight. You know? So the Rebbe is telling this young girl, I know it's a difficult situation. I know what you got to go through, what you're going through. But remember, the mourning period is finished. Now you have to be proactive and do what you can. And if you were put in the situation, God has given you the ability. And guess what? She herself is a mother of 15 children today. And with success and an educator in the Chabad Girls' School in Crown Heights, and my daughter's had her as a teacher, from the best teachers, the best mentors. This same teenager who complained to the Rebbe about her situation. So she could have easily have copped out and said, forget it! What kind of God are you? Take away my mother? At age 36, I think, or 39? And now I don't have a life for myself? For whatever reason. You don't know why. That happened. This is the situation on the ground. Go with strength. Don't give up. Like I told you before, if you have a difficult time in friendship and this or that, don't look at it as a failing. Look at it as an opportunity for growth. And that means that issue is haunting you. Because that issue is calling your soul. Hey, Michael, Chaim, Anne, Yoshua. Hey, wake up! Wake up, I need you. That's what's going on. I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's...
You have. I have had miscarriages, and I know at one stage it was very hard to get over it. And when I was able to reframe it and look at it as an honor and privilege to work with Hashem, to be a partner with Hashem, to be able to help the soul have its ultimate redemption, it looked very different. And I was able to move on and get over it.
And you're lucky. You worked on it, and you accomplished. You should be very happy and I'm glad that you're sharing with everyone to take a misfortune and something like that and overcome. You're a strong person.
Like you were saying, it wasn't like me feeling bad about what happened. It was me looking at Hashem as my partner, looking at as Hashem who picked me actually.
That's right.
Partner in this, and and I was so lucky to being able to have that soul inside of me, kosher food. I heard that heard Jewish things and all these Jewish experiences that I had.
It had its thing that it needed.
And I was able to help it take it to that level. And I was, very, it was an honor to do that. As much as not what you wanted it to be.
Right.
And you were able to look at it and see, and thank God, I have 7 healthy children.
Thank God.
And each one is a blessing.
Amen. And you know what helps when we're together? When people share with each other, become friends. And I'm talking to everyone here. We become friends. And we talk with each other. And we cry together. And we laugh together. We're going to grow. We're all going to grow. Everyone in a different way. We're going to grow. So you got to work on really, being friends, being together, being, being real with each other. That's what I said in the beginning, opening up, which is very difficult at times, but it's worthwhile. In the long run, it's very, I'm going to use the word cathartic. It's a real cathartic experience. And you feel cleansed, pure, rich, So, stay in touch, and
So let me ask.
yes.
Who would like a part 2 next week? Okay. So Tuesday night is a fast day. You can have it with no dinner. Wednesday night is open for me, and there's nothing. And then Thursday night is like a few speakers. And I don't want to take away from those by having something on Wednesday night. But if you you all feel. If you come on Wednesday night, we can do it on Wednesday night.
When, in other words, normally you guys meet Tuesdays or something? No.
On Tuesdays, I have the honor and privilege of living with Anne and Morgan, and everybody else is, any other women are welcome to come. We're reading through a book called The Lost Self together.
I have a book called Your Better Self.
It's based there, so there's some time there and there. Anyway, so usually we meet, but then Tuesday, and this week was something on Wednesday night, this night will go for us. So next week, we could do Tuesday, it's open, but it's a fast day, so I can't say that it's a fast day on the
So
Jewish
why not Wednesday night?
But Wednesday night's also open. So what's your Wednesday night? Put your hands up. Your Wednesday night works for you. Okay? And please share the word with others who you think would enjoy it. And 7 or 7:30?
7.
Okay. The same as this one on Wednesday.
And do you want me to talk about some of the other issues regarding the soul, afterlife, regression, the books, or do you want me to another topic?
That would be very interesting. Continuing this topic.
I'm open to either one. If you have something else that you prepared or that you want to talk about, just go.
A lot of things, but I want to know. Yes.
Maybe along the lines of like situations where they thought it was hopeless, but then like it was a sign to keep going, like kind of like what you were saying earlier.
Okay, that's part of it. Yeah.
Tikkun olam.
Tikkun olam. Okay. Okay, so we'll just keep it kind of part 2 of this discussion, and we'll just choose a few of the other things. I'll try to put what you guys said to the talk, and if I forget, you remind me.
Can I add?
Sure.
If anybody feels something this week, we'd love to have you share it next week. Feel God in some way after this talk or something in your life. If you're comfortable, then we'd love to have you share it next week. So we can get a little brain getting.
Let's sing one song together. Okay? Anyone in particular you guys want to sing, or you want me to choose? What do you know?
I know a few, but not all of them.
Well, which one? Which one do you know?
Mostly Wanda Prince.
What'd you say?
Mostly Wanda Prince.
Is there a song about that?
This is the song.
Yeah, no.
Hey, Johnny, 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 what are you doing in the market? You don't buy, you don't sell, all you do is yell. Hey, Johnny, 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 what are you doing in the market? You don't buy, you don't sell, all you do is yell. Ta-la-la-la, da-la-la-la-la-la. How does it start, new? Yeah, new. No, not the Yiddish, the Ukrainian. Ech ti duri na yare marko shtot ti yedi na yare marka tolka robi zarko. Ech ti duri marko shtot ti yedi na yare marko ne koplayit ne prodayit tolka robi zarko. Hey, in Hebrew, some of the Chonafshi, Koma, Hey, hey, Toma, don't buy, he don't sell. You know what he wants? Yell. He makes you meshuggah, crazy. That inner force that says, be silly. Be silly. You gotta recognize you got a Johnny inside yourself. And that's half of the cure. Not the whole cure. The recognition of the problem is the beginning of the therapy. The beginning of healing is the recognizing, you know. And it's so hard to recognize. It's so, because we put up these blockages and we justify whatever we do. And you know what I mean? We find all the excuses. So when you sing this song, you think to yourself, I got a Johnny in myself. And the Johnny ain't so kosher, okay? He ain't so good. He ain't so, into the right things. Let me deal with it. Let me talk to the rabbi. Let me talk to the Rebbe. Let me talk to each other. That brings an end to the silly Johnny. And this song comes from our ancestors, the Chabad Chasidism. 200 years of our ancestors who went through the hardships, the czars, the pogroms, the communists, the Holocaust. And we're still going through the stuff today, as we unfortunately saw on October 7th. We're paying our dues, right? But we're not going to sit quiet. And we're not going to accept. And we're not going to be scapegoats. And we're not going to be scared. We're going to stand up. And we're going to stand up and say, I'm a Jew and I'm proud. And if you don't like it, it's your problem, not my problem. Okay? We've had many enemies over the years. Many foes, many people who wanted to get rid of us. And it hasn't happened yet, and it'll never happen. Because God chose the Jewish people as a light onto the nations. And we're here to stay. So, rather than being a fool, be smart. Join the bandwagon and give respect to these people. What do these people bring to the world? Honesty, intelligence, healthy emotions, so many good issues, wealth, prosperity, brains. You know what I'm saying? Come on. That's a reason why? Because there maybe there are a high percentage of Nobel Prize laureates that are Jewish. That's a reason to hate a Jew? Come on. Come on. So only with strength do you win. You don't win if you go as a weakling. When you capitulate and you give in, you get nothing. Stand up to what you believe. Very important today, especially you young Jewish professionals. And I thank the Rabbi, the Rebbe in particular, for having me talk to you, talk with you, not talk to you, talk with you, share, experience. You know, I don't get out of Brooklyn much unless I'm called out of Brooklyn. You know, I'm a writer, researcher, and a speaker when I'm asked to speak, but I'm not running around the world. I did that, you know. I'm a little older than a rabbi here. I did all that. I put up a Chabad house with a shul, with a mikveh, with a yeshiva. I did that already when I was 23, 30. 7 years of my life, I put up all those institutions. So I did it already. So when I come out to places like this and people like this and these cities and communities where, you know, it's not Brooklyn, okay? It's not Jerusalem. And it's not even, what is it called, Amberley? Whatever, I don't know where.
It's definitely not Amberley.
Yeah. Here! It's here where we have to make God present. Yeshua, Josh, right here. We got to bring Jay Schottenstein and Columbus right here to campus. I'm very serious. You know, it's very nice, Columbus, and it's nice there to have Orthodox shuls. It's important. But what about here? Who's going to bring awareness to Jewish people right around the college campus and this area? That's what they're doing here. And we're all fortunate to be part of their program and to be involved. They can't do it alone. I always talk about, you can't do it alone. They need help. Every Chabad rabbi and Rebbetzin and wife, they need help. And you are the, Janelle, you in the kitchen before I saw you preparing. That's what I mean. And for another person, it's a check. And for a third person, it's giving a ride. For a fourth person, it's hanging up these things. Everyone got to help out. What? Yeah.
This is not volunteer.
Yeah. No,
That's a little from Perla. I'm gonna need a helper to take it down.
okay, so, and by the way, just an aside, I'm here for the weekend. I'm here for another week, but anyone that has the ability to maybe show me a little bit around Cincinnati, let me know. I'll gladly accept. A little. I'm here. I like to see a city because as a writer, I see things and I study them. It's a whole. Like I said, you're all part of a study tonight. The study's up here. Right?
I asked you all to sign a form on your way out.
I told them I'm not going to mention any names unless they want me
There's
to.
a lot of rich Jewish history
Yeah, well, I would love to learn. I'll learn about it. I'm serious. Rabbi Laser Silver was the leader of the Orthodox community in the 1940s and 50s. You know what kind of rabbi you had here? You had a rabbi who was the rabbi of rabbis in New York, but he lived in Cincinnati. And then, of course, the Reform movement has its head here. I mean, there's a lot of history.
In the 1880s, there was a very great person called Rabbi Isaacs, and he started Rabbi Shachna's shul, and he was the one who stood up to keep Orthodox Judaism going.
And that shul still exists today?
No.
No.
No, but he started the mikvah. They wanted to get rid of mikvah, and the mikvah still today is called the Beit Tefillah Mikvah Society.
What is it called? Beit what?
Beit Tefillah.
Beit
The
Tefillah.
Mikvah Society, and that was the Mikvah Society that he started, and the mikvah to this day carries that name.
Beautiful.
Because he fought for mikvah.
Okay, so those are things that, I love to hear. I'm a history buff,
Fleischmann's yeast was invented here by the Fleischmann family. the Jewish family.
Oh, yeah, Fleischmann yeast?
I'm sure you've heard of Manischewitz.
Manischewitz also from here?
Yeah.
The North
You
Avenue.
can visit their ridge.
Yeah?
You can see their mansion.
Rabbi and Rebbetzin Manischewitz.
There he was a rabbi. Yeah. Okay, so if anyone has a little time, and a vehicle, take me around a little bit, and I'd love to go with you, I don't have a lot of time, but I do have some time. Sunday, Friday afternoon, whatever, And then every day, like from 4 and on, I'm free. Because during the day, I'm at researching between the research and the library. It's, no pressure at all. Only do it if you want to do it and you enjoy doing it. Do it. If you don't, it's also
Get to
fine.
talk to you.
And yeah, you get to talk to me, and I can talk to you, and we can drive and talk.
Own personal private podcast. Instead of dialing it up on your phone, you have it sitting next to you, talk about whatever.
I want to say it was an honor and privilege to be able to hear from you tonight,
Thank you.
and we really appreciate this opportunity here in Cincinnati. It's not often that we get such treats.
Thank you. Take off the camera now. Thank you.
We'll let you know if we have a follow-up plan.